The following program, The Lightning Strike, is sponsored by Mohammed Fahim, and to the extent applicable, their guests. The views and opinions expressed therein do not necessarily reflect those of NewsWeb Radio Company or its management.
Get ready to be jolted out of the ordinary and into a world where conversations are charged with intensity and facts. The Lightning Strike Talk Radio with your host, Mohammed Fahim, broadcasting live from the heart of the city on Chicago's Progressive Talk Radio, WCPT 820 AM. Welcome to a radio show that charges through the airwaves with an electricity like no other. Here's your host, Mohammed Fahim.
Good morning, folks. This is the Lightning Strike on WCPT 820 AM, Chicago's Progressive Talk radio station. I'm your host, Mohammed Fahim. And joining me today is Dr. Sheila White and our
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Sheila. And Reed Bible has joined in early today. Good morning, Reed.
Yeah, well, I thought this first day of winter, I should just show up to warm everybody up.
Okay. Well, let's get some lightning on. We also have our person of the week joining us, which we'll be introducing her shortly. And also today on the show at 8:20, we have the president of the Arabian American Chamber of Commerce, Hassan Nijem, would be joining us to talk about the chamber and what they do. And at 8:30, we have got Anabel Mendoza will be joining us. She is running for the Illinois 7th District for the House of Representatives. And she will be joining us. 9 o'clock in the second hour of the show, Congresswoman Murray Newman will be joining us with her regular segment. And she is going to be talking about the Epstein files, of all things.
Yeah.
Astroturfing in the primaries. I need to ask Murray what she means by that. And data centers and their significance in this elections and farmers' subsidies. 9:30, Maria Muzaffar would be joining us with her segment of Breaking the Echo Chamber. And Dolly Ramirez, yeah, sure. Dolly Silverberg may not be joining us. She is traveling. Carl Moose is traveling with his family. He's coming back from Indy, he texted. So, yeah, he'll not be joining us today. And Adriana Alvarez would be joining us in the 9 o'clock hour. So let's get this started, folks. Let me start off with something that Illinois does very well. And it's not a compliment. Illinois is very good at locking people up for a very long time and then calling that success, especially when that person committed their crime, when they're young. We have built a criminal justice system, folks, where a 17, 18, or a 19-year-old can be sentenced to decades behind bars. And the system pats itself on the back. Press conferences are held, headlines are written, careers are made, justice served, they say, as if the number of years alone proves anything. It doesn't. I have worked extensively with people who have been incarcerated, and when they come out, they are broken shells. Let's talk about the part that nobody likes to talk about, right? The cost of it. In Illinois, it costs tens of thousands of dollars per year to incarcerate one person. The average cost, Sheila, at IDOC is about $48,000 and up. And that cost explodes as prisoners age. Medical care, specialized housing, constant supervision. And let's not forget that the prison industrial complex now is privately owned also in a lot of instances. So when we sentence a teenager to 40 or 50 years, we are not just making a moral decision. We are making a multi-million-dollar budget decision, whether we admit it or not. And here is the truth. By the time many of these people reach their 40s and 50s, the data is clear. Their likelihood of committing another crime drops dramatically. We keep them locked up anyway, right? Not because they're dangerous, but because releasing them would force the system to admit the sentence was excessive. Just think about that. We are spending millions of tax dollars not to make us safer, but to protect the system from embarrassment.
Mm.
And that is the sad part of it. Illinois loves to talk about rehabilitation, right? Let's dive into it. Let's be honest. Rehabilitating someone at 55 after locking them up since they were 18 is the hardest, least effective, and most expensive version of rehabilitation imaginable. And I would like to get our guest views also on this, Sheila, when we bring her into her segment. We take young people, folks, impulsive, reckless, still forming their brains, and we lock them into cages for decades. We strip them of technology, work experience, family life, basic decision making. Then, after 30 or 40 years, we open the door and say, hey, good luck. That's not rehabilitation. That's abandonment with paperwork. Now, if this were any other government program, it would have been shut down for incompetence. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. The prosecutors, and I know quite a few of them. I know a few judges also, right? In Illinois, prosecutors are rewarded for one thing above all else: convictions and sentence length. They're like car salesmen. How many cars have you sold this month to how many people? Okay. Long sentences are treated like trophies. Yeah, 40 years, 60 years, life. Those numbers look great in press releases and campaign manners, right? What doesn't get measured? Did this sentence actually reduce crime? Did it make the community safer long term? Could this person have safely returned earlier? What did it cost the taxpayers? There is no downside for over sentences, right? The prosecutor doesn't pay the bill. The bill goes to us, the public, you and I. And the consequences don't show up until decades later when everyone involved have moved on. So here's the thing, folks. In Illinois and many other states also, you can ruin a teenager's future, spend millions of public dollars, and still call it a win. And our laws lock this failure in place. I'm sorry I'm going a little bit long today on this monologue thing, but it's been bugging me for a while now. Truth in sentencing forces people to serve 85% or more of their time, no matter how much they change. We abolished discretionary parole. Clemency and commutation are politically radioactive because the judges have to run again for office. Second look sentencing exists only in narrow, very limited ways. So sentences become permanent truth, frozen in time, even when everyone knows they no longer make sense. Reform doesn't mean being soft, folks. It means being honest. If Illinois was serious about justice and public safety, here is what we would do, okay? I like not just to point out a problem, Sheila. I like also to come up with what is a possible solution could be, right? So first, expand second look sentences. Judges should be able to revisit long sentences after 10 or 15 or 20 years, especially for crimes committed by young people under the age of 25, 26. Second, restore meaningful parole review. Not automatic release. We are not asking for that. Earned review based on behavior, growth, and actual risk. Third, change how we evaluate prosecutors. Track recidivism, track fairness, track cost. Stop pretending sentence length equals success. And finally, invest earlier. Diversion programs, mental health care, restorative justice, education, reentry support. Organizations like the Safer Foundation are doing a phenomenal job in bringing people in and, with reentry programs. Reentry support cost a fraction of the decades in prison, and they actually work. I've seen that in action. I've got truth and positivity, and videos of people who came out of the system that we helped to rehabilitate into society. And I can play those one day for you guys. Here's the hard truth. Illinois does not have a justice system built around outcomes. It has one built around avoiding risk. Long sentences feel safe politically. They delay accountability. They push the consequences onto future budgets and future leaders. But safety isn't measured in years handed down. It should not be measured in years handed down also, right? It's measured in what actually happens next. Until we stop confusing punishment with performance, we'll keep spending millions to grow old, folks. And these old prisoners, and we're going to be calling it justice because admitting failure takes courage. This is the Lightning Strike on WCPT. When we come back, I want to hear from you. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back on the other side of the break with our person of the week, and Dr. Sheila White will be introducing her. Let's wait to hear back from you. So if you want to join the conversation, 773-763-9278. We'll be right back. Okay, while we are waiting for our station to join us, I think let's go ahead.
Residential and commercial property owners. If you're like me, you're sick and tired of paying high electric bills, which, by the way, are on the rise. You're also probably unaware of the federal, state, and utility incentives that you qualify for. Take out a piece of paper and a pen and write down this number, 630-785-0031. Again, 630-785-0031. Give Greenlight a call for a no-cost, no-obligation energy assessment, and we'll show you which federal, state, and utility incentives you qualify for. Again, 630-785-0031. Give us a call, 630-785-0031.
Welcome back to the Lightning Strike with Mohammed Fahim.
Okay, folks, good morning. We are welcome back to the Lightning Strike, and I would like to have Dr. Sheila White introduce our person of the week. Good morning, Sheila.
Good morning. You know, the lightning has struck with rehabilitation in Illinois this morning. It seems like not in Nevada where you are, Reed, but you know, America, from what you said, has so many injustices that has going on for decades. And one thing I'd like to say about that, and we're going to bring our guest on, but our identity in America seems to just be losing every day or stolen or strayed. It's ripped off by America and this Constitution, this government. It seems like each and every day there's something going on. So yes, we do need a reboot in this particular system. And I'm excited today for Chicago because we have with us as our person of the week, Miss Saunders Campbell. And she is an entrepreneur. She's a public speaker. She's an author and also a media host and informational technology professional. She has over 20 years of experience in technology consulting with corporate and educational clients. And Ms. Campbell is a founder of several initiatives that focuses on empowerment and community support. We need her in this system. We need her in government. We need her in America as well.
We need her on the Lightning Strike, Sheila.
We need her on the Lightning Strike every day. Yes, we need her regularly because her view and what she's doing and the initiatives that she's pushing forward is so important. She has a 501(c)(3) nonprofit organization called CHAMP, and that project is based on a book that she wrote. And we're going to hear a little bit about that in a little bit. And also, I'm really excited about her organization, Beauty In, Beauty Out, Vivo. It's so exciting to hear about that. And we're going to be talking to her about what that organization is doing, the programs it has, and the awards that she does give out, celebrating women in leadership. So you guys are on air right now, but we got something for you, some information. So just stay tuned. She's also the founder of Be-Spired TV, which this is what we need, Mohammed. We need more media personalities like this.
Okay,
and
yeah.
She's
And we also have Hassan Nijem just joined us. Hassan, we are running a little bit late today because my rant ran over our allotted time. So please stay with us, and we'll be introducing you shortly as soon as Traci's segment is over.
Yeah, so we have she's an exciting person. I'm excited, I'm happy, and really blessed to know her. So welcome to the Lightning Strike, Traci, this morning. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much I'm glad to be here.
Like Mohammed said, we need you every week on this show because what you're doing is so important. We need a reboot in this whole system. But Beauty In, Beauty Out, the foundation, I know it was created in 2013. Tell us a little bit about that initiative and why you did that.
Well, I tell you, so my journey started with the Champ Community Project. And at that time, it was based on a book and workbook program that I authored in 2009. I can't believe I'm saying that, back in 2009. And we did a lot of work with young people growing up in disadvantaged homes. So what you said earlier, Mohammed, about, penalizing young people at such a young age, instead of focusing on the rehabilitation, instead of focusing on the rebuilding, if you will, of their minds and of their environment. So Champ Within program, I authored, it's a book and workbook program. For 7 years, we helped young people in the US and in Nairobi, Kenya. Over 800 young people went through that program over the course of 7 years. And then that was the springboard for BIBO, Beauty In, Beauty Out Foundation, where we said, hey, a lot of these single parents, a lot of them are women that want mentorship. They want to be recognized. They want to feel valued. And so we created that award platform.
Traci, I'm jumping in over here with Sheila because I'm so I feel so blessed to listen to you talk about these things. So
Yes.
Sheila, please don't mind if I jump in and take
Go right ahead.
some of your lightning away. This is what we need. These are the kind of people that we need. So please continue.
I want to also talk about Be Inspired TV because as a media personality, Mohammed, not only is she working with different initiatives to help youth, young people, and some of that community that you mentioned, people that have had some hard times, but she's bringing this to the media, Be Inspired TV networks, where people outside of the United States and around the United States can be inspired by great programming and initiatives like she's doing. So talk to us a little bit about Be Inspired TV.
Oh, I can talk forever about Be Inspired TV, but
unfortunately, we don't have the time for that today, Traci. Okay.
The condensed version today. Okay, so all those years with BIBO Foundation, Champ Community Project, my background is technology. I've been in technology a long time. I work with developers day in and day out. All of that came together. I've done a lot of radio and other things. And so we started a radio program, the B Zone, back in 2017. It's been on terrestrial radio, digital radio for years. All of this came together. And someone said, you guys have a lot of content. Why aren't you guys thinking about streaming? Because streaming, of course, was becoming popular. At first, I said, no, I don't know if we could do that. Fast forward a year later, we got developers together. We came together. We did the code base. We owned the code base. And we launched it at the end of 2022, November of 2022. And the mantra is be informed, be entertained, be inspired. And so the idea is that we want entertainment, we want information, we want inspiration, but we want it to be without a lot of the negativity and salaciousness and things that you see on mainstream media right now. We want to kind of take it back to, a time where you can be entertained and informed and still be, for lack of a better word, decent and above board. So that is what we're doing at Be Inspired TV.
You know what, Traci, in 1998, God, time flies. I was in Houston and we started a local newspaper. We called it the Good Newspaper.
Yes.
No bad news, no murders, no rapes,
no
robberies. And when I finally retired and moved from Houston back over here, the local Houston Post newspaper bought it and killed it.
Oh, wow.
So, just to give you some context on the media, but thank you so much for what you're doing. We are running a little bit late on time today. Would you mind staying on while we introduce our other guests?
Absolutely.
And I really want to continue the conversation with you.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Okay, thank you so much. So it's about 8:24, folks. We will We'll be right back after a break. But now I'm not going to take a break today for the second, second sponsor, Dylan. So let's continue the conversation. I want to introduce Hassan Nijem, president of the Arabian American Chamber of Commerce, who's joining us. Hassan, good morning.
Good morning to everybody. Good morning.
Well, we have a great panel today for you. We got Reed Bible, who's joined us from Henderson, Nevada. Reed is a retired special supervisory agent with the Department of Homeland Security. So he's one of the good guys, though, not the bad eyes guys. Okay. Also an immigration attorney, and he is a former Will County board member. And we got Traci Saunders Campbell. You just heard what a great background she has. We also have a couple of people joining us in the second hour. But Hassan, so the Arabian American Chamber of Commerce, what is it? What do you guys do, and why do you need a Chamber of Commerce? What do you do? I mean, I know what you do, but for our listeners.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to the radio show this morning, joining all of you. Arab American Chamber of Commerce is founded by our brother Nimer Ziad and our media Ray Hananiya to support our community in different activities in the community we need it. So the December 9th, we recognized almost 60 to 70 leadership from different community, Arab and non-Arab, for what they achieve in their personal life. Most of immigrants, they arrive to this country, they come with a little bit of money, and then they start their life. Struggling in the beginning, and they work hard, and then they achieve, and then they become a successful businessman, or they came a student studying, paying, working day and night, and then they become a doctor, lawyers, engineers, all aspects of life. So the chamber's role is to support and lift those members.
Well, thank you so much, Hassan. And folks, the chamber recognized me as also one of the best with their awards. Thank you so much for the award. It meant a lot to me. And you're right, Hassan. We come in with nothing, and some people like me start a radio show also called the Lightning Strike.
Yes. Like all immigrants, if you go back to them, they come with nothing, struggling, and especially right now, we see they targeting immigrants, and which is this country being founded by immigrants, and they come and they work hard day and night, and they become successful. They contribute to this economy. Then we have all kind of support for them.
So Hassan, folks, for those of you who don't know, Hassan was also an honorary deputy treasurer for the state of Illinois, if I'm not mistaken, sir, or the city of Chicago?
No, I was honorary deputy treasurer for the Cook County Maria Babis office, and now I work in the treasurer Cook County Maria Babis for the property tax, and we are the outreach liaison between the Arab community and the office, and we help people with their any problems they have in their exemptions and their tax issues. We explain it to them, and we refund it to the Arab and Muslim community. People are missing exemptions, missing refunds, millions of dollars back to the community. When you're dealing with the government, a lot of people, they get scared. So when we make an event and we ask people, what's your address? They say, why do you need my address? Especially when they know you are from the government, people are scared from the government. Yep. We tell them, don't worry, we don't need your government, but we need your address to find out if you have missing exemptions. There is no knowledge for people, what he's talking about. So sometimes it takes him a while to provide this information to us, but finally he will give it to us, and then we go to our laptop and we check his address, and then we see his missing exemptions. Yes, how long you been living in this home? Oh, I've been living 5 years, or you don't have homeowner exemption. What? What is this? I
Yep.
said, this is missing exemption. It depends in the township you live. You can get from 600 to 1,000 to 1,500 to 2,000. It depends in the township. Oh, I can get this one. How can I get it? Now, that's the second question comes up. How
Yep.
can I get this exemption? I said, okay, you have to apply for it. You've been missing it for 4 years. We can go back 4 years and we give you, let's say 500, for example, for 2,000. Oh, that's fine. Now it's easy. It ease the conversation. It's make it easier.
Yep. And
I
I've
said,
seen this. I've seen this in person, Hassan, when I've attended a couple of the programs that Maria was also there at. And right there on the spot, her office people are sitting there with their laptops and getting people money back from the government.
Wow.
yes,
And
yes,
that,
and then we said, okay, you have an overpayment for 2013, $1,000. You never claimed it. Oh, do I do? Yes. How can I get it? And then they start easing, and then they say, do you go send us the money? I said, yes, we will. We have to fill up the special document, and then we will mail you a check. Until now, he's suspicious. I said, what he's talking about? Is it true? You are a scammer? Who are you? And then, people, they get, because there is a lot of scams going on. I said, we are not scammer. We are real. We provide checks for you. And we find a lot of seniors. When seniors comes, they missing their senior exemption and senior citizen freeze. Senior citizen exemptions, you can qualify if you are 66 and older, but if you are you make more than 65,000, you don't qualify. If you make less than 65,000, you qualify for the senior freeze, so you qualify for homeowner, senior freeze, and senior citizen exemption. So those three exemptions, sometimes they add up. We don't want to say average person's maybe $2,000. And you've been missing it for 4 years. You qualify, your discount. Some taxpayer, they pay zero, for the exemption. When we apply all the exemptions to them, they apply zero, and then they are happy. But in the beginning, we have hard time getting these people, especially, government sending us money. But check.
Hey, Hassan, let us not forget that our felon in chief promised everyone that they will be getting about $15,000 or something in our accounts once he got elected. We never got that from who is not going to be spoken of by name on our show over here. Okay. But it ends in rump. Okay, the name ends in rump. Hassan Nijem, thank you so much for joining us. Hassan, I know that you are also supporting some candidates who are running for office. Who are you supporting now? The chamber, I believe, recently had a fundraiser and introduction for a candidate in the 7th district or the 6th Illinois district.
Actually, I am working for government, and we can support any candidates. But we do help people, to promote. We have a few candidates running, especially in the 9th district. We have almost 19 people running for that district. It's very contested district right now. And we are helping, I think we don't want to call names, so we're part of the support, but we are supporting candidates. And what we do, we urge people to vote. That's my message to everybody who's registered voter, especially in our community, in Indian, Pakistani, Middle Eastern. We are U.S. citizen, and we don't take advantage of this benefits. Vote. Your vote counts and makes a big difference, special time in these days. That's what our message is out, to register and use your vote. Your vote matters.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Hassan, for joining us. And speaking of candidates, folks, we have Anabel Mendoza joining us this morning. And Anabel, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. And she is running for the 7th district in Illinois.
Good morning. Hi, everybody. Good to be here.
Well, thank you so much for joining at such short notice. I know that we've been trying to connect with each other. How's the campaign going, Anabel?
It's going really well. Very exciting. Like most like most races, it's a packed, packed days, lots of going all around the district. So today I feel very grateful to be on this radio show with everybody here. I was listening into some of the other guests. Traci Saunders Campbell, sounds like you're doing tremendous work. So I can't wait to hopefully connect about that more. That sounds amazing, especially coming from a media background. It sounds like you're doing really wonderful work. But the race itself is going excellent. We have even today, right after this, I'm going with Reverend Robin Hood to different churches across the South Side. So, making the most out of this beautiful Sunday that we have and hopefully not so chilly weather. So.
Well, it's going to be in the 40s and the 50s this week. So
I know, we're lucky. This is spring for us.
One thing which I hate though is I want a white Christmas. Okay. So we had a pre-Christmas snowstorm.
That might be overrated. We get a lot of slush. It quickly turns to slush here in Chicago.
Okay. So, Anabel, why Congress right off the bat? What prompted you? What said, hey, I want to get in there. We all keep hearing about, we need to drain the swamp. It is not so much a swamp, it is a sewer out there now. Okay. And we need young people like you to come in and make these changes. Everyone that is out there, Murray Newman, my co-host in the second hour, former Congresswoman, has said openly on the air with us many times that 80 to 85% of our lawmakers, and I'm using the term very loosely, have sold their soul to the devil. Okay. They have handlers, they have lobbyists, APAC, blah, 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 and all of that. They're not making laws for us. So how do you want to counter that?
Yeah, well, right off the bat, I'll just say that I was born and raised here in Chicago, and I'm running in a district that is very personal to me. I grew up on the southwest side of the city in West Lawn in a proud working class Latino and immigrant family. I saw what my parents had to go through. I had wonderful childhood memories because that was what my parents wanted me to have, but it was also them hiding what were the struggles that they were going through, financial hardship that even millions of families today are still going through. You would think that, in the 20 years since then, now that I'm an adult, things would be better for families. It's not. In fact, it is actively getting worse. At one point, my family had just $9 left and 3 little kids to feed under the age of 10. That is not sustainable for any household. And so it did mean that my parents had to go without dinner some nights so that I could get that food instead. And when I'm out there talking to voters, that resonates with them because they also have felt that strain. And in fact, they're feeling it squeezing them and squeezing them and squeezing them. And many people are also, staring down the barrel of rising healthcare premiums that are going to crush families across this country. We are also we're not in normal times. I think everyone on this call knows that. And when we have a president who is threatening a third term, we absolutely need to take that threat seriously. And we can't afford to lose in this moment. We need young leaders. That's how my parents and generations before me, that's how they raised us. That's how they raised the young people to be brave. We're stepping up. We're saying, you know what? We're not going to wait around to be saved. We're going to go out there. We're going to try to do good. We're going to try to serve the communities and make sure that we are fighting back against what's happening. Because if we don't do it, who else will? I mean, clearly, as you said, we can't wait for other electeds to do it.
And most of the time, this is what I keep on telling folks, that we say it is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. Heck, we are the people.
Yes. Yes.
Not this career politicians out there.
Yes.
You're supposed to come in, do your civic duty, and go back and do your farming. That's how the system was set up. And now we got people in Congress for the rest of their life, in the Senate, in their 80s and 90s.
Right.
These guys have no idea about legislation. Traci, you want to say something?
Oh no, I was agreeing wholeheartedly that there should be a, for lack of a better word, time period for service because you get a little
there
out
should
of
be
touch.
Absolutely.
There should be a limit, on how many terms you can. Term limits should be mandatory.
Absolutely.
Right.
I completely agree. I believe in term limits, and I believe that part of leadership that we need to turn the page on, and what I'm hoping to bring to a position like this is to be able to mentor other young people to see that leadership is possible for them too, right? This isn't one of those things where you get in and then you slam the door behind you.
Oh, yeah.
This is how we can continue to lift other young people up, because the truth is many in my generation are very politically active, but also feel a lot of hopelessness with the current state of our country. It's time to reinvigorate that hope, and it's also time to make sure that in the past, what has failed in our politics is that people, one, stay in office for too long, but they also don't mentor who comes next, right? They don't make sure that that is a path to leadership. And we need to invest in that, because this isn't about one person or one seat. It's really about the future of our political system and how do we want to change that culture.
Absolutely. And, in progressive circles, we definitely talk about it that our leadership, our political leadership, party leadership, they need to get their act together. I'm sorry, they've been sitting on
No,
their behinds for too long.
Yeah.
no,
And then they bring in people through the system and
yes,
they shove it down our throat and say, oh,
yes.
sorry, Kamala Harris lost the election. Yeah, Kamala Harris should not have even, run for presidency at such short notice. There could have been other candidates. There should have been a primary. And that is what we need to change also. It's not so much the young part of it. People need to change their thinking. Annabelle, thank you so much. How do people get to find out more about you?
Absolutely. You can go to my website, anabelforcongress.com. That's the best way to get involved and stay engaged. But very excited for this race. And thank you all for having me. I feel very honored to be among such brilliant minds and to spend
And
this morning with you all.
thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. And
Of
yeah,
course.
all the best. And do keep in touch. We have the forums coming up in January. So where we will invite candidates from all different areas, from distant districts to come. And, let the listeners know who you are so that people can make an informed decision on that. On that
Absolutely.
note, Reed Bible, good morning, Reed.
Good morning, Mohammed. Before
Thank you, Annabelle.
Anabel
Thank you for
goes,
joining us. And Reed, we still have Hassan Nijem with us and Traci. Traci, I want to ask you, in the 8th Congressional District, I think you are in the 8th District, right?
Well, I am no longer within the city limits anymore. I'm out in the suburbs now.
Okay, yeah. So in the suburbs, the 8th Congressional District is, Sheila was telling me that you are in the Barrington area.
I am.
Yeah.
So part of it is 8, part of it is 9, part of it is 10. These
Right,
congressional
Yeah.
boundaries are nuts.
right.
Mhm. Yeah.
When you think about the 8th district, does any candidate's name come to your mind? And do you know who's running? What jumps
Not
out at you?
really. Not really. I think,
Yeah.
excuse me, I think out here, the passion, if you will,
Mhm.
the fervor when it comes to campaigning and running is not the same as it is in the city.
hmm Yeah.
Okay,
Agreed.
okay. So yeah, that
Agreed.
really tells me something. Reed, good morning. What is on your mind today, my friend?
well, good morning, Mohammed. And first, my ears perked up a little bit when Annabelle was on, because I think she said she was working with in her campaign with a Reverend Robin Hood.
Robin
Did I,
Hood. Yeah,
Yeah.
what a
did
name.
I hear that? I just correctly, a person with a name like Reed Bible pays attention to other people's names. And, and Robin Hood, I hope that means that she's inclined to do some reforms to our income tax system, so that we have some Robin of these extremely wealthy, and making them give some of that tax money back to the rest of us poorer folks.
Hey, Reed, right now we have a Robin Hood in the White House.
That's
Yeah.
true. That
Okay.
is so true. That is so true. And
Okay. Traci is shaking her head. Traci, we say it like it is over here. If you
Yeah.
notice,
Yeah.
we don't take commercial advertising, so we
Right.
don't have people telling us what to say and what not to say.
That's
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, we are going to be talking to Hassan Nijem to see, Hassan, if you can raise some funds for us for the show going into next year. Okay.
Yes,
Well,
yes,
Yeah.
we will, we will.
Because that keeps
Yeah.
us independent. That keeps us
That's right.
Yeah.
independent. So I don't want somebody coming and say, "Hey, if you say that, I'm going to pull my advertising from you," and there goes the show. So, Reed, please continue.
Well, I'm glad to have Mr. Hassan Nijem on today too, because it relates to what I want to talk about with regard to private nonprofit social service agencies that focus on helping the immigrant community. Today, I want to address a specific immigrant committee or community, I should say, and the implications that are posed by what's happening in and to the Somali immigrant community in Minnesota. I wish to do this because Minnesota is my home state, for one thing, and Minneapolis is where I was born and grew up. In particular, I feel it incumbent upon me to talk about the Somali community because I also have derived an insight into the issues relating to immigrant communities from spending decades dealing with immigrant matters. I think, sadly, what's happening to the Somali community in Minnesota is not unique to this group of immigrants, and it exemplifies the importance of all immigrants to get culturally assimilated to the United States in order to be protected from exploitation, oftentimes at the hands of members of their own communities, and also to defend their civil liberties against unscrupulous government officials. And I'll further elaborate on these points in a few moments, but the Somali community in Minnesota, like so many other immigrant communities, is finding itself at the intersection of racial prejudice, Islamophobia, and a resurgence of nativism or xenophobia here in the United States at the present. All this is being promoted by Trump's hate and fear mongering. And over the past several years, Trump has referred to Somalis as, quote, garbage, disaster, and he claims that all they do is, quote, complain, complain, complain. Basically, he wants to expel the entire Somali American community and permanent residents back to Somalia.
Well, he wants to bring in, Reed, he wants to bring in white South African farmers. Let's not forget that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I was going to get to that point in a few moments anyway. You're exactly right. And now he's using this excuse of a $1 billion welfare fraud allegedly perpetrated by a few bad actor Somali immigrants in Minnesota to rationalize his racist targeting of all Somalis. And he's now canceled temporary protected status, which was scheduled to be extended on March 17th of next year for all Somali refugees. And he has also directed ICE to conduct immigration raids indiscriminately against the entire Somali community, not just the undocumented. And ICE and CBP are not focused just upon the hardened criminals, as Trump and Kristi Noem claimed would be the objective. Trump has said, quote, I don't want them in our country. Their country is no good for a reason, end quote.
Yeah.
Now the vast majority of Somalis in Minnesota, 95% of them are U.S. citizens, and most of the other 5% are lawfully admitted permanent residents, many of whom speak English with a heavy accent. But ICE and CBP are not using data collected about specific individuals or using final orders of deportation that have been issued by immigration judges. They're not basing their warrants of arrest on specific information or reasonable suspicion to stop people, to ask them questions. And they're not ensuring that immigration hearings are according to everyone that they arrest or detain. And all these are violations of the Fourth and Fifth Amendments. What they're doing is they're using skin color and accents to justify virtual kidnapping of any Somalis from the streets of the Twin Cities. And according to ProPublica, there have already been 170 instances of United States citizens and lawfully admitted permanent residents detained by ICE. So in order to understand the unfairness of this situation, I think it's necessary to give just a brief explanation of the modern history of Somalia so that you can understand, and also you need to understand the affable culture that goes on in Minnesota that drew this largest community of Somalis, which is over 90,000 in North America, to that particular state. It's called Minnesota Nice. The earliest trickle of Somalis to America was a small number of sailors in the 1920s. However, the largest number began arriving here after Somalia gained its independence from Britain and Italy in 1960. And that was followed by a military coup in 69, which was followed by the outbreak of civil war in the 1990s. The country was rife with ongoing armed conflicts at the hands of warlords. Bloodshed, starvation, and illness broke out everywhere. This precipitated this influx of Somali refugees to the United States, where they received temporary immigration status, which is a legal status that's given to nationals who are experiencing difficulties or unsafe conditions in their native lands.
Reed, you know what? I want to stop you right there. I also want to go back, and when you get a chance, please go back and research to see if we, the United States, had some hand in those conditions that were created in Somalia, because we are very good at going around the world and creating chaos and then coming back in and as saviors. Meanwhile, spending our tax dollars, the military-industrial complex keeps wars going out throughout the world. So we need to look and see if we had something to do with what happened in Somalia. So please continue.
Oh, absolutely. And also our activities in Central and South America as well. Well, in addition to TPS, which is what we call temporary protected status, another quasi-legal status that America can confer is called parole, which we give for humanitarian purposes to people fleeing crises. And presidents have been granting parole since 1950s to asylees and refugees. But since Trump took office, TPS has now been canceled for Ethiopians, Haitians, Cameroonians, Hondurans, Nicaraguans, Venezuelans, South Sudanese, Africans, and Burmese, in addition to Somalis. So meanwhile, white Afrikaners, as you mentioned, are being granted TPS as Trump claims they are being targeted for, quote, genocide, but without any substantiation and contrary to what South African President Cyril Ramaphosa and many other white Afrikaners have asserted. I think you can see that there's a pattern here that if you're black, you're brown, or yellow, plans are to make you one of the 700,000 people whose TPS is being canceled, rendering you deportable. And somehow this is not the case if you're white. So how did the Somali community in Minnesota get cast in the shadow of mass large-scale welfare fraud, which now has enabled Trump to contrive all this mass immigration enforcement? Well, the primary cause was the actions of about 70 malfeasant Americans of Somali descent who established some alleged nonprofit private welfare or social service agencies that, while purporting to be rendering services, was actually exploiting mostly the unsophisticated recent Somali immigrants as a means of defrauding federally funded welfare benefits from being administered by the understaffed state Minnesota agencies during the COVID pandemic. So that's what gave rise to a lot of this. And nearly $1 billion in welfare benefits were falsely obtained from various child nutrition, health, and housing programs by these unscrupulous nonprofit providers that prepared and submitted invoices to the Minnesota Department of Human Services for such things as meals that were never prepared for non-existent children or medical services that were never actually rendered. And these 70 malfeasants would court Somali immigrants, relying on clan ties and familial relations, luring them away from legitimate nonprofit private welfare organizations by using their common language, making appeals to their common ethnicity and their history. And they promised even to get better results for their prospective welfare benefit recipients, and even offered kickbacks to lure them from competitor nonprofits that had more integrity. Like with other immigrant communities, though, the commonality of their ethnicity fostered an unearned trust on the part of the Somali immigrants for these agencies.
Hey, Reed, let's not forget, though, that we have a convicted felon in the White House who has been convicted of 34 felonies.
Oh, absolutely.
He is leading a gang of grifters out there.
Yes.
And these are the people who are coming back. Is the kettle calling the pot black?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Trump is the master of projectionism. You know what he's up to when he's accusing somebody else of something. That's exactly what he's doing. So now this is where the Minnesota Nice comes in, that did taxpayers in that state a disservice. Minnesota attracted these Somali immigrants because of its widespread reputation for welcoming immigrants and the racial tolerance that usually you enjoy up there, and the generosity it shows towards the poor. And state agencies tend to follow a, quote, honor system under which the integrity of the private nonprofits is generally assumed, whereas only recipients tended to be scrutinized by the welfare agencies up there. So when a state agency did any meaningful scrutiny of the nonprofits, the providers would levy false accusations of racial discrimination in any opportune public forum like newspapers, TV, radio, public meetings, gatherings, any place other than in a court of law. So this caused them, this staved off any further scrutiny of them by the state agency workers who wanted to avoid negative criticism from the general public. So these two circumstances are strong illustrations of how immigrants must culturally assimilate into the mainstream culture to avoid being duped by some members of their own ethnic group and by falsely believing that they can only trust people of their own ethnicity. And also it causes the damage, a nuanced type of deep-seated bias here in America that's done to minorities actually being discriminated against whenever there's knowingly false accusations being made of discrimination waged against people of goodwill, white people of goodwill. So, and that's what happened with the Minnesota welfare agencies. So they stopped scrutinizing the private agencies and were scrutinizing the actual individual recipients. These recipients were being used, in other words, as a conduit by the malfeasance to
And
get money.
We need to keep on revisiting this, Reed, because this is not a one-off subject that we have.
No, it's very typical of many of the ethnic groups that have emigrated to the United States. I've seen it in Chicago in the Polish community, the Irish community. It's all over the country, and it's important to know that just because somebody's of your same ethnicity doesn't mean that you can necessarily trust them. It doesn't mean you can't trust them either. You have to be critical about everything, but don't engage in this sort of variation of racism or prejudice by assuming anything about a whole group of people simply because of their race or religion or that sort of thing.
I totally agree with you, Reed. So, folks, Reed Bible, retired special supervisory agent for the Department of Homeland Security. He's the one who actually started all this ICE business, so let's hold him accountable for that.
Actually, I was one of the first ones that started ICE, yes. And I never thought it would evolve or devolve into what it is today.
So if you want to join
he's
the
one of the good guys.
conversation,
He's one of the good guys. He's one of the good guys.
Yep. The number to call in if you want to call in and join the conversation is 773-763-9278. It is called, we call this segment the What's on Your Mind, so that you can join the conversation or you can text us. It is sponsored by Ray Hanania, and you can go to hanania.com to learn more about Ray and what he is doing in the media space. And so, Traci, let us come back to you. We got 3 minutes to finish off this segment. And I am looking that Adriana Alvarez has joined. Good morning, Adriana.
Good morning. Oh, let's see here.
Okay, so we'll
There we go.
move
Yeah,
on
good morning.
in the second hour. Dr. White, continue the conversation with Traci, please. And I'm so thankful again, Traci. Thank you for joining, and Hassan, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You know, the lightning has been striking all morning here in Chicago, it seems, and there's so many different topics, so many things going on. But I think that what Traci is doing in the area and in the state of the Chicagoland area is so important. Her program for CHAMP is so key because she's helping individuals, single parents and teens. I love the initiatives that she has going forward and the fact that she's on B-Zone and Beauty In, Beauty Out. She has a Beauty In, Beauty Out weekly publication as well. Traci, what's on the horizon for 2026? Because you're one of the champions that we are championing on today for the great initiatives you're doing with single parents, teens, and abroad. So what's on the horizon for 2026?
Wow. Well, we have a lot of big plans moving forward, one of which is to bring more content to B-Spire TV, but content that, again, speaks to edifying individuals, educating them, empowering them, inspiring them. There's a need for that. I think this conversation has illustrated that there's a need for reporting news from a positive perspective, but also realistic. There's a need for educational programming because, again, PBS has been defunded, right? They've done that, and I can go on and on. We don't have enough time, but there's so many reasons why we need platforms like B-Spire TV.
Wow. So awesome. And I just want to thank you for being our special guest. Thank you for hanging on today. Inspire TV, B Zone Radio, terrestrial radio talk show, as well as Beauty In, Beauty Out. You all are giving scholarships. You're helping to be a problem solver in this world of change, complexity, and overwhelming competition that we're in. You are the answer, and your organization is the answer. So I just want to thank you for just putting the spotlight on something good this morning so the sun can kind of shine in Chicago area a little bit with the programs that you have. And with all that's going on, what do you see as far as we're talking about the rehabilitation? I want to come back to that a little bit because you work with teens, you work with single moms. Where do you see rehabilitation as far as what we were talking about earlier in the system? I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. One of the things that we wanted to do, and we purpose to do it going forward, is to focus on women re-entering society. When we think about prisoners, when we think about jail, when we think about prisons, instinctively we think about the men, not so much the women. And we really want to develop a way in which we can help them adjust. A lot of them are moms.
Okay, we are coming up on the top of the hour, folks. Yeah, we are coming up at 9 o'clock. So, guys, if you want to wait a couple of minutes, let's see if the station wants to take a break for the top of the hour news. And sometimes they take it, and sometimes they don't. And we can continue our conversation because we are live on Facebook also, and the entire conversation will be posted on our website and our YouTube channel. And Adriana is now coming back in for vacation, so she's going to be doing the social media aspect of it and putting those clips up. But Traci, while this conversation is continuing, you wanted to talk about re-entry, especially of women into the workforce.
Yes.
How much are you aware of the VOA program?
A little bit of awareness.
Okay, yeah, let's talk offline. But Sheila can connect you and I together.
Yeah.
I ran it for a number of
NBC
years.
News Radio, I'm Michael
Okay,
Kastner.
there we
Talks
go. We are at the
between the
top of the
U.S.
hour.
and Russia to end the war in Ukraine are underway in Florida.
Okay, so while the station is continuing on the broadcast side of it, let's continue the conversation. So yeah, I helped to run that program for over 10 years in the Arlington Heights Unemployment Office. So very aware of the VOA program, especially for people with low income backgrounds or those who have been let go of their jobs. So there's like a 1Y program for youth under 21, for example, to bring them into the workforce.
Yeah.
And we have done a number of programs on that. 1D is for dislocated workers.
Okay.
These are federal funds coming into all states. And 1A is for adults who want to come back into the workforce, including, homemakers who have spent time raising families. They want to come back in. There are grants available for them to get training in current disciplines over here. And then get a job. Most people are not aware of that. Again, the state workforce system has done a very, very bad job of marketing these services. People don't know about it. And then we have these workers coming in the state offices, punching a time clock, getting a paycheck and going back home and not talking about it. So when I joined the system, I was very specific, and they wanted me to come and join them because I had started a local television show called The Employment Hour on cable television after retiring from my other ventures. I joined them for 2 years, and the main ask that I had was I should be allowed to make changes. And those 2 years stretched into 10 years before I finally put my foot down and said, I'm gone. Okay. To do things in other areas also. But those are the important things, folks. If you want to find more information, you can go to Illinois WorkNet. That's one word. WorkNet is one word. Go just Google it, Illinois WorkNet. There should be an office in your area, in your town that is serving. Yes, Reed.
Mohammed, other than the fact that you can't run for president because you weren't born in the United States, is there nothing you haven't done in the United States since you've been here?
Hey,
I'm just amazed. And among the other things you're doing is, I believe you started a Substack.
well, I started a Substack, yeah, and I'm starting to post on it. And just today, we started a community alliance in the town that I am in last year, and we have been doing activities along with the nonprofit that I started about 9 years back. Aman is my a nonprofit, American Muslims Assisting Neighbors. We did a food and essentials giveaway yesterday, and we had a number of people come. And this the community alliance is non-political, non-ecumenical. We don't push religion, we don't push politics. It is about helping people, building bridges, neighbors getting to know each other. And we did that at Life Spring Church in Plainfield. And Pastor Fran Lehman is a good friend. And you have we have a couple of other churches come in, and our whole group of the Community Alliance. We got good plans. So yeah,
Yeah.
Reed, it's about giving back. Okay, I can't take it with me,
Yeah, that's true.
and it's never been about me. I started out like we are talking about with immigrants coming in. Hassan was talking about how immigrants come in with no money and nothing. Yeah, I came in 1983, 84 after working for an American company overseas as a marketing manager. Hassan, I come back in, and they told me that they can't get me a job over here because I don't have American work experience. Okay. 2 bachelor's degrees, a master's degree, extensive international marketing and sales experience, and my first job in the country was washing windows in Woodfield Mall.
Yes, I want to just jump in
Please.
For Mr. Reed and about immigrants. Like I stated in the beginning, immigrants, and I'm one of them, we come to this country in different aspects of life. We start from scratch. And
we're about to come back in
here.
Thank you.
We come here, we don't speak English, we don't know the American culture, and we start learning it. But in a few years, I'm talking about the Arab.
Welcome back to the Lightning Strike with Mohammed Fahim.
Okay, Hassan, let's continue the conversation. Welcome back, folks. We are back on WCPT, our top of the hour, and news from NBC is over. This is Mohammed Fahim. Thank you so much for joining us. We got Read Bible. We got our person of the week, Traci Saunders Campbell, Dr. Sheila White, Hassan Nijem, President and CEO of the Arab American Chamber of Commerce, and Adriana Alvarez. Adriana, good morning. What's on your mind today?
Good morning. So today I would like to talk about something that happened this past week in, of course, Washington, D.C. President Trump has done something again that has made all of our minds kind of blown as to why this is allowed. So alongside with his 18-minute speech on how he's was running his campaign on affordability, but now saying for the Christmas season that you don't need to buy your child that many toys. They don't need it. Focus on the kids, not the adults. Adults don't need presents. He also did this. He installed what looks like a presidential walk of fame, and he is mocking some of the presidents that we've had in the past, and it feels like Truth Social posts. So I'm just going to read a few of those for us here so we all can become aware of what's happening. So for former President Barack Obama, he made his plaque say, as president, he passed a highly ineffective Affordable Health Care Act, resulting in his party losing control of both House and Congress, and the election of the larger House Republican majority since 1946, and that he was the most divisive political figure in American history. For Ronald Reagan, he goes on to say a few of things that he's done, but he ends it with that he was a fan of President Donald J. Trump before he was in office. For former President Joe Biden, he went very in detail of how much he despises him by The first line saying, "Sleepy Joe Biden was by far the worst president in American history, taking office as a result of the most corrupt election ever seen in the United States. Biden oversaw a series of unprecedented disasters that brought our nation to a brink of destruction. His policies caused high inflation ever recorded, leading the U.S. dollar to lose more than 20% of its value in 4 years. His Green New Dollar, his Green New
Green
scam,
New Deal. Yeah.
his Green New scam surrendered American energy dominance, and by abolishing the southern border, Biden let 21 million people from all over the world pour into the United States, including from prisons, jails, mental institutions, and insane asylums. His Afghanistan disaster was among the most humiliating events in American history, which resulted in the murder of 13 brave American service members, with many others gravely wounded. Seeing Biden's devastating weakness for Russia invaded Ukraine and Hamas terrorists launching heinous attacks on October 7th on Israel. And he goes further in deep with that. He goes on to say with Bill
Oh, boy.
Clinton that a few things that he just didn't agree with. Also, for the fact that in 2016, President Clinton's wife, Hillary, lost the presidency to President Donald J. Trump. So he goes on to do this, and it feels like True Social post that he is just ranting
Yeah,
onto his
he's got those little
Twitter.
plaques up on the wall now.
Mhm.
I mean, what a childish thing. Okay.
It's really like you see this and you think, so this is what their tax dollars are paying, just so that way Trump can make his True Social posts into gold and black lettering. That's all that it is. And this is starting to make a stir in a lot of people, not only on the Democratic side, but also on the Republican side, because they're looking at this thinking, what are you doing? Alongside with the death of I believe it was a celebrity that had passed that
Yep.
Trump
Reiner.
had made fun of. Yeah, Rob Reiner. He made fun of him, and a lot of people were like, "What are you doing?" And some individuals were also alongside with that, which this has only happened in just 1 week. There was a mass school shooting in the country, and no flags were at half mast, not a single one. And people were like, well, we can put them at half mast for a social media figure who went on college campuses just to debate college kids, but we can't put them at half mast for these other things. So there's a lot of stuff that's going around that is, I can only assume, is making Trump's approval rating go down more and more. Alongside with that, he lied on his statistics as well when it comes into inflation and how he's slashing prices by 4, 5, 600%.
Okay.
If he wants to take a class in math for first grade, I don't think you can do that, but
Okay.
there's a lot of different things he's done this week.
Well, if you bring prices down by 600%, then the merchants will owe us to buy things from them. Okay. And let's also not forget, folks, that this guy makes up things.
Yeah.
And I think the worm or something that was in RFK Jr.'s brain got transferred to Trump, or maybe they have a common worm in between them. Trump claims 300 million Americans died of drug overdose. Okay, I look around and I see most of my neighbors still alive. And let's also not forget, folks, that this thing that is going on in Venezuela, they finally came out with the truth on that. It is about oil. It is
Yeah.
not about drugs coming into our country from Venezuela all the way over here. Impossible in those boats. And now what have we done? We have let the world know that America has no principles. And
Wow.
unfortunately, it is people like Donald Trump. And it's not just Donald Trump. It is the entire supporting cast. Donald Trump is just a puppet. Let's face it. That's just what I've been saying on social media. There are people pulling the strings behind Donald Trump. So if Donald Trump is gone tomorrow, this thing is not going to end. We need to completely check these people who are in Congress, in the Senate, with elections coming up. We want to hold people accountable. And that's when we started the show, Traci. The whole idea was that we are going to raise awareness and we are going to support people to get into elected office and then hold them accountable. That is the most important part. Adriana, thank you so much for bringing that to our notice. And we got former Congresswoman, Substack author of books and everything, Marie Newman, joining us. Good morning, Marie.
Good morning, friends.
Morning,
Good
Marie.
morning. Good morning.
Morning. Good
So,
morning.
Marie, we got your good friend Hassan Nijem on with us today.
Morning,
Hassan,
morning.
how are you, my dear?
Good. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for
Yeah.
all your valuable
Our
support.
person of the week is Traci Saunders Campbell.
Hi,
Marie,
Tracy.
she will blow your mind. The work that she's been doing
Yeah.
is outstanding. Tracy, you need to run for Congress.
Yes,
Oh,
please, please.
Oh, but that's a whole other episode, Mom.
Okay, so Marie, let's get started. Let's jump right in. What is happening with the Epstein files? Do we finally have them?
You
I
know,
see that the
so
Department of Justice, so-called Department of Justice, like we renamed the Department of Defense as the Department of War. There should be a Department of Justice renaming it the Department of Injustice.
well,
Mhm.
sadly, you saw my triggered response, right? Is that
Yeah.
immediately when you say the DOJ, I start laughing because at this point it is laughable, right? I'm equally, it's one of those things with the Trump administration, that in fact they're immoral to start out with, just across, like that's the baseline. But the level of incompetence, the level of just sheer stupidity is still shocks me. For some reason, I'm still in shock sometimes. Like you don't think they can be that incompetent, but they are. Now, in this particular situation, they are being immoral, breaking the law, and incompetent, because whether you look at it from a PR standpoint or from a purely legal standpoint. So let's tackle the legal stuff first, is that in the law that was passed unanimously by both
Let's
houses,
not
with
forget
the
it.
exception of one person. I think there was one
abstaining or
one
voting against.
goofball
Yeah.
in the House of Representatives that didn't support it.
Yeah.
The law was very clear, is that it must be in its entirety. So, this most recent update on the files is that there were some new tranches. They did release some tiny bits of it, right? Is that they had on Friday and yesterday they released a little bit. And here's where we're at. So it was a partial release, obviously, and they missed the deadline. They acknowledged that there were heavy redactions. There were what I'm hearing from the committee is that there were literally hundreds of pages that were just all blacked out, meaning there was no white space on
Yeah.
it. So who does that? Come on. They altered photos. Fun. Who doesn't want to alter photo in a legal document from the White House? Fun. They released a bunch of things that included former President Bill Clinton with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and Michael Jackson and Kevin Spacey and a lot of people from Hollywood. Interestingly, we're not seeing any Republicans yet. It looks like they have taken Trump out of several photos in a really bad CG attempt, which is funny to me. So far, they haven't seen the evidence of blackmail, although they expect that, because remember, in this bill, they also identified that, in fact, not only they can redact the survivors' names, they're not supposed to redact any. So they're already breaking the law with the redactions. And then secondly, there's an inventory list of the items that exist now that other people have. So we know what's not going to be in there. So every time they take something out, and they've already taken out critical pieces, we know. So that'll just get reported every time. So where are we at right now? So what happens next? So Republican Congressman Thomas Massey from Kentucky, who co-led the bill with Rep. Ro Khanna from California, have effectively accused the DOJ of breaking the law already. They've been very clear on that. So if all the Jeffrey Epstein files are not released as required by law, both of them have stated that they'll pursue several actions. And this is the important, we got to put teeth behind things, right, folks? So, in fact, that they'll pursue this against the DOJ, which will be, the possibilities include impeachment, contempt of Congress, and criminal referrals for obstruction of justice, because this is a clear case. This isn't a kind of maybe sort of thing. So they were outlined specific line item by line item, millions of records, right? So so the planned actions kind of go like this: as Rep. Khanna would specifically mention that he has specifically mentioned that the beginning stages of this set of articles of impeachment have already started. They're prepared. So that would go against Attorney General Pam Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. Now, know this: two things happen in an impeachment when you are part of the White House or the cabinet or a federal agency. When Congress chooses to impeach you, which is the actual proceeding, you also simultaneously are reviewed to be disbarred. So it's a real problem if your DOJ folks are getting disbarred while they're trying to defend whatever they're
We
doing.
had Alina, how about being kicked out? Also, remember that?
Good Lord. I mean, you can't write
Okay.
this stuff, right? And then they're also pursuing inherent contempt of Congress charges against the officials failing to comply. So that would be inclusive of all federal people that are not, and employees that are not complying. So that's something that'll be, I think, permeate and probably be important and compelling, because not everybody's going to want to go to jail. Like, Pam might want to go to jail, but like everybody else does want to go to jail. So criminal prosecution referrals, Connie and Massey have warned that anyone found to be concealing documents or engaging in excessive redactions, heavy on the excessive redactions because they've already done that, could face criminal charges, which is obstruction of justice. And then there will be continued legislative pressure. By the way, just because we passed this law doesn't mean we can't pass another one that creates stricter scrutiny around this. So watch Massey and Khanna as they move forward, because they are putting teeth to it. And I believe we are going to have a reckoning. There's no way around this. The worst case scenario is this PR is so bad it brings down the administration from a perception standpoint, and he falls into the 20s of approval. That's kind of the worst case scenario, and we win across the board everywhere. The best case scenario is that one of these, what I would call teeth items, actually works, which I do think, I would say 90% one of these things is going to click. So so watch that space, folks. We have a lot of exciting weeks ahead of us. By the way, this is a long drawn out thing and it'll take weeks, but I think we're getting there.
So Marie,
kind of
what is this
Sorry, go ahead.
astroturfing that you were talking about? I mean, that's a new term for me. That's a new
I
term
know,
for me.
right?
Yeah.
It's one of, I think, the funniest political tactics that we see in American politics. So it's a little bit difficult to explain, but effectively it is when an unexpected opponent helps your opponent. So I'll give you a classic example. When the Russians helped Republicans and lifted up Trump, they desperately wanted Trump to win, because obviously he's, if he's not an asset of Russia right at this point, he's pretty close to being one. So when they lifted him up, that was surprising. So whenever your opponent lifts up your opponent effectively, so if you're in the Democratic primary and one of your opponents lifts up someone in the Republican primary, that's astroturfing. It also works in, kind of mission campaigns when you're lifting up something that your opponent is a party to. So the classic example, interestingly, was in Illinois. Famously, the National Democratic Governors Association lifted up a primary candidate in the Republican primary. And you would say, why would the Democratic Governors Association lift up a Republican candidate in the gubernatorial race, right? In the opposite primary, the Republican primary. Well, the reason is they wanted to choose who they ran against, right? And this is why they do it, is that when someone from the opposite party helps out, they want to choose. So in that case, they chose the Aurora mayor, who was already a bit beat up, and ultimately JB ran against them and won because they wanted to choose their candidate. So interestingly, and I want everybody to watch this, I see the groundwork happening in Illinois 9, Illinois 7, and Illinois 8. This could be, so watch those races, those congressional races here in the Chicago area. I think that the opponents are going to come out and help, interestingly, beat up some of the primary opponents in the Democratic primaries in each of those races. So watch that. Probably the most interesting case that's very relevant right now is going on in Texas as a final example. So many of us are aware of Jasmine Crockett's rise. She's a congresswoman from Texas, a great speaker of working families and on many matters. They believe, and we won't see this till all the filings, the FEC filings are out. They believe that that a set of Republicans in Texas actually pulled on that race on the Democratic side several times to boost her because they'd rather run against her versus James Tallarico. Not knowing all the ins and outs of that race, I have no idea. I mean, both are doing well in the polls, so we'll see what happens. But that's the prevailing theory. So watch that one too. So it is astroturfing is sort of curious, but it does work. I will tell you, in the case of JB's race, it did work. So
I would love to see Jasmine Crockett actually run for president. Okay.
Yeah.
She is so darn good. Yes, Reed, you wanted to say something.
Oh, no, go ahead. Finish your thought. And I wanted to ask Marie a question. So,
Yeah, go ahead, please.
okay. Marie, you were pointing out three options here, considering what's happening with Epstein. You mentioned impeachment, contempt of Congress, and obstruction.
right.
And the latter two, contempt of Congress and obstruction, really aren't they very much driven by or dependent upon the cooperation of the DOJ to bring charges? Or how would that work? It seems to me it's not really that realistic to count on using those two weapons against the DOJ. The only one I can see could be effective would be impeachment, but I'd like your take on this.
Yeah, so let's break that down. First, let's do the backdrop on this right now. So what are we seeing? We're seeing MAGA split. So the political climate is important to note here because everybody gets a little braver when folks start to faction off. So if we're setting the landscape here to understand the whole picture, note that MAGA and America First are splitting. Members of the GOP are publicly defying Trump. What are the biggest markers? Marjorie Taylor Greene resigning and saying that she is no longer with Trump. Big marker, right? The fact that the entire Republican caucus in Congress defied Trump and voted yes for the Epstein files release. That is a big fracture. The fact that 4 Republican members of Congress are going to vote for the ACA, the next 8 round of ACA bills that come out. There's a few in the works right now. So that's very significant. And they're fairly well-known members of the GOP. So that's interesting to me. We're also seeing that people are just getting braver and judges are getting braver. I think you can see it in all of these docketed cases where judges at every level are starting to defy Trump, but follow the law, right? They're not doing anything wrong. They're following the law.
Yeah.
So that's the backdrop. With these 3 options, I would say, remember when they go to adjudicate this, it will go to a mid-level court. It won't go to the Supreme Court right away. So then it's going to spend time there and spin around. And, there's various things that they can do to prolong this, certainly, but it's just going to keep it in the press. So if, PR 101 says, with crisis, get beyond it. And they can't get beyond this thing. So again, the worst case scenarios, let's say that these 3 sets of teeth, I'll call them, don't work. This effectively just decimates. He's a lame duck now. I mean, he just is. Folks, I've got news for everybody in the world. He's a lame duck. But we are very likely going to win in the House. Now we have a very good shot at the Senate. So either following 2026, he will either be impeached or so cauterized and isolated that he's just no one will talk to him anymore. I mean, it'll just be like a ridiculous thing. So,
Marie, I'd like to use another word for that. We just said cauterized. I would like to say neutered.
Yeah, cootered. Yeah, that's good. In fact, it would be both, right? Because there would be no testosterone left.
Yeah.
And there would be no bloodstream left, right? So they'd be cutting off all day.
Okay.
So,
And that we're talking about the president of the United States, folks. I mean, this guy is. I mean, I don't even have words to describe him. It's so bad.
Yeah, it's a curious thing. But yeah, so let's watch what happens. I do want to assure everybody, because everybody accuses the Democrats, which rightfully so, accusing them of not using teeth. These 3 sets of teeth that they're choosing, these 3 options, for me, I think obstruction actually is going to work, because I don't think it's the thing, if you watch courtrooms, it's the thing that judges hate the most. When you get in their way of understanding the evidence, it's back to that human condition thing. Like, we're all our own egos, right?
Yeah.
And that just makes them the crankiest when they can't get at the evidence. So I will say obstruction is probably the most likely to work. But it does harm longer term that will help us. Real quick, I want to turn our attention to something that's been ignored a bit. And again, as I always say, ignore at your risk, because this is important. So we're hearing now Trump is paying off the farmers. Well, remember what he did.
Yeah.
He set these ridiculous tariffs. Most notable was with China. These, and I don't even know what it is. What is it? 150% tariffs right now? I don't even know what the number
They
is,
keep on
where they
changing it.
landed.
Yep.
So China previously was the top buyer of American soybeans, and our farmers desperately need them and rely on them. But that virtually stopped all purchase of soybeans. And so the China said, okay, well, we'll just go to Brazil. Thank you so much. So now all of these crops are laying dead in fields. They've had to be demolished. They're not making any money. So there's a commodities problem now and so now Trump has said, okay, I took all that money away from you and you're all in big debt now. So I'm going to come to you with this, what he's calling a new bridge deal, where the administration is giving aid vis-a-vis bridge payments to help farmers stay afloat while the new, more favorable long-term trade deals are being negotiated. Well, there's nothing that's being negotiated. So remember, farmers, you're in this awful space. Our reputation is marred internationally. And then he actually isn't doing a darn thing. Nobody's talking to anybody. So this is, of course they're incredibly angry. The farmers are angry. So they want trade, not aid. They just want to be able to trade and produce their products and sell them. This is a temporary fix that doesn't address the root problem. It's a self-inflicted problem, right? And this is the aid package that I want everyone to hear these numbers. So this package is really insufficient, right? The aid packages, such as the initial 12 billion and then some subsequent maybe 28 billion he's offering from the first term, were not enough to cover the total losses incurred by farmers at all. In fact, not even 40% of their losses. So it's just such a slap in the face, right? And it just destabilizes everything more. So, and then what's interesting is that there's this wonderful group of Black farmers that have come together and said, I don't want your aid. We're going to figure it out. So they're creating collectives and buying procedures and negotiating with other countries on their own. So God bless them. Let's all give them applause.
Yeah.
And that's the way to handle Trump. But do watch that. So I'm going to be talking about this more in my Substack at Marie Newman Studio on Substack. Take a look there. And that's all that I saw we need to look at that are being ignored this week.
Marie, thank you so much for bringing awareness on those things. We got Maria Muzaffar also joining us. Maria, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you? Thank you, Marie.
So we got some great people on, Maria. We got Traci Saunders Campbell. You should have heard what Traci is doing.
Yes.
It blew my mind, and it'll blow your mind also. We need to sit down, Traci, okay, after this.
Yeah.
And Maria has got something great also going on. She's a legislative attorney, author. You talk about somebody with a social media personality. We got two of the best, Marie Newman and Maria Muzaffar, on a team over here. Okay. So, Maria, breaking the echo chamber. What have we looked at now today? What is happening in the echo chamber that you want to inform us about?
So I think, first of all, I want to add on to what Marie said about the Black farmers, because I had the opportunity to interview a Black farmer out in California, and it's a collective. And she described the program to me, and she basically said she changed the terminology of food deserts to food apartheid, which I had not heard of before. Yes. And she said the way that the farmers are being attacked now because of the current administration, they have come together and in the community said, listen, we have been doing this for a long time. We've been taking care of our families. We know how to cook. And when mass farming and industrialized farming came in, it basically pushed small farmers out and also took out all the health that we were putting into our communities. So the food desert turned into a food apartheid. And now this is the extension of that. So our fight is not only against the mass industrialization of farming, which include all of these pesticides and all of these things, but also blocking out small farmers and access to fresh food. So I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And she said there's a lot of collective, like you said, Marie, all over the country. And I think it's going to be these small farmers that have had a history in their culture of providing good food for their families and are pushing back against false narratives that the culture has caused health disparities in their communities, right? These are the people that are going to roll up their sleeves and teach people about what actual food is and good farming is. And hopefully with good advocacy and people that are doing this work and us waking up to their power, we'll be able to promote that. We don't need a health secretary to talk about refined sugar in candy and cereals without talking about the deliberate impact of pushing away good farmers that wanted to provide good food all the time for this country. So yeah, it was beautiful. So I'm so glad that so many people are waking up to that, myself included. In addition to that, I think a lot of you probably know that Bovino and ICE made a comeback in Chicago. That is the news. That is the news that Bovino has come back to Chicago. And on Thursday, there's an accountability commission that had a hearing. And the accountability commission is the commission that was brought together by Governor Pritzker to review all of the stories of the deportations and the detentions and what it's been doing to families in Illinois. And so they had a hearing on Thursday, they had a public setting. And so I'm interested to see what this commission will do. I think what's important for the audience to understand is the Accountability Commission is created to make a statement that it is the people. It is the people that has to track what's happening to your neighbors, to your community members, to the students that are scared taking tests. You know, I saw Lieutenant Governor Stratton outside public schools she was giving out know your rights documents to individuals. So it's going to be people that are going to have to step in and protect our families. And so many people have been doing that. So this accountability commission is going to be controlling all the processes of collecting data. And I think we all have to take a part in it. So if you see someone in a situation that's being targeted, or you've come across something on your news feed, just add it on. You know, send it over to your accountability commission, and that's on the website at the for the I believe the general website for the Illinois governor, and just say that you have a story to tell or something to share, and it all get compiled up. And this stuff takes time, unfortunately. So when all of this material comes together, eventually there will be a report. But in that process, there has been good news because there are people that have been released, right? There are people that were U.S. citizens that now can share their story about the conditions within the detention prisons. Now people are connecting the dots between private ownership of these detention centers and why they make money and how they make money. So let's create the whole circle together. So I'm happy to hear that. The other thing I know that Mohammed, you had spoken about in the beginning, because I saw it in the agenda and I wasn't here for it, is the attack on the Somalian community.
Yep.
And the narratives.
Reed had a complete take on that today.
Okay. So I want to, and I think we did it a little bit last time too, and I want to extend that a little bit to what we're seeing play down. So we know how social media can shape our narratives and how we can fight back and be more awake to it. So if you saw the attack in Australia, that was on the headlines everywhere. There's in Australia, there is a beach called Bondi Beach, and there were Jewish families celebrating. And there was an attack on them, as many of you know, and it was a horrific tragedy, and there was a shooting. What's interesting is that two things happened, and this is the power of media, and so important for us to be awake. They misidentified the shooter in the beginning, okay? They misidentified the shooter in the beginning, as a Pakistani man and put his name on there, and he started getting doxxed and flooded with death threats, visits on his home, and he was wrongly identified. So we just have to be very careful when we read something to share it or not share it, and also not to form an opinion about a people, because that is the purpose of quick sharing. That's why people release it very quickly, especially those who think it's a victory that the person comes from a certain group or could be from a certain group, because it creates divisions within the community. The second thing about that, which was interesting, as you probably may have heard, is that the person that actually attacked the person shooting was a Muslim, and he was an immigrant, which is an interesting backdrop with a country that is dealing with immigration policies that is trying to demonize immigrants. So, it's just an interesting juxtaposition. And I think if we could see the irony in that, of how limited our understanding could be when people are using sweeping generalizations, right? So the concern was that the shooter was a Pakistani Muslim, but the person that stopped the shooting was also a Muslim. So there is no monolith. There are no monoliths in any community. I think we just need to reaffirm that.
And then our friend Netanyahu immediately comes out with a statement that this was targeted against Jews, it was anti-Semitic and all of that. And the Australian Prime Minister shut him down real quick. Don't try to make political out of this. Get out, shut up. Our country, we know how to fix these things. So this guy jumps in anytime. Sorry, Maria, I mean, I had to jump in with that.
No, thank you. Because majority of the time, I try to weave in the elements of dehumanization that we use in our policies, in our narratives. And so, again, an opportunity to dehumanize people further. And it's so interesting that the Prime Minister of Australia said, no, we're not going to use this as an opportunity to divide people further. And I think we need, as Americans, to also look at the global scape and see how people handle different things when people try to dehumanize their own people. What kind of statements leaders say? Because I remember doing Christchurch when this happened in New Zealand, the way they responded was that majority of the TV casters and the newscasters were wearing hijabs just to support the Muslim community, because they knew which way this was going to go. So every time we have a tragedy like this, I think we can either use it to humanize each other or we can dehumanize. The third thing that I wanted to talk about, which was shocking to me, and I'd love for you to chime in, Marie, and other people as well, is the shooting in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Because, the individual, from what I understand, and I'm still researching, the individual was someone who, had issues with Brown University. And also, so they connected the dots between the professor that was shot and the student. So it was the same person. The vital discussion we need to have is not that he was an immigrant, because that's a political narrative that we can take up, right? We can take up. But the fact that he was brilliant, he was absolutely brilliant, because his classmates said that he could solve physics problems in the most complex physics books that he was doing as a sophomore. So what happened when there's brilliance and there's emotion and there's anger? How do we deal with that? And we deal with that by addressing mental health, recognizing mental health. So this could either be an opportunity to say, see, we can't let immigrants in because we have to vet them because they have these issues, or we can address what causes the influx of mental health in our country today. What is the pressure? What are the economic challenges that people are facing? Why is there isolation where people feel uncomfortable reaching out in mental health issues, or it's not being identified? And now, what about the cuts to Medicaid and individuals that need mental health issues? But I'd love to hear from any of you to speak on that, because I think it's so important. Yes, Reed.
Oh, hi, Maria. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
It's just, we have to set our priorities in this country. And one of them is that healthcare is a universal human right. And yet here we are, we're going to cut 22 million people off, I think, from affordable health care. Part of health care is mental health care, which we
Yeah.
seem to have a pandemic, not a pandemic, but an epidemic within this country on that. And it's just, this has got to stop. We've got to start spending money on affordable health care in this country. We need a single payer system. It's as simple as that. So, what can we say? We've got to elect a new Congress that has the correct set of priorities, one of which, besides campaign finance reform, would be funding so that we have affordable health care, just like every other industrialized nation in this world does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think tying it to incarceration too, right? I mean, how many people are incarcerated that actually need mental health access and resources?
You're absolutely right, Maria.
And absolutely, and it's reaffirmed and worsened when you're behind bars.
Yeah,
so you have.
I'm sorry, but we're more interested in punishing people than we are in rehabilitating them. This is something that Mohammed was talking about an hour ago. So we have to decide what are we going to do as far as our correctional system? What is the purpose of it? Is it purely to punish people? I think not. It's very expensive to do that. And you're saying that people are irredeemable. You're just going to throw them away as human trash. And then you're further complicating it with the private sector getting into it with private correctional institutions. So our priorities are getting really screwed up. We need to straighten it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's beyond
You're so right on that, Reed. And Maria, thank you so much for bringing up the mental aspect of it. Mental health is a huge issue. In Will County, in the last elections, there was a referendum on starting a mental health board in Will County. So the board was formed, and my daughter Juhi is actually a clinical psychotherapist, so she was appointed to the board. So now the board was formed, but there was no funding for the board because the Republicans on the Will County board said, yeah, no, we're not going to fund this thing. So you talk about cutting your nose to spite your face. Finally, they did come up with some funding, but then again this year, there's going to be we had Joe Van Dyne, the speaker of the Will County board, as a guest on the show a couple of weeks back, Reed, if you remember. And Joe was talking about how the Republicans are again making sure that there is no balanced budget being put forward by the county executive. So elections matter. Elections matter, not at the federal level, not just at the federal level, at the local level also. So yeah, please continue.
Well, I wanted to say also, I know that we had a candidate here today, and we've been having candidates come in and speak. And I think what is important, Marie and I were at another candidate thing on Friday together. What I find very interesting is that we have so much information out there. We can do our research ourselves on policies and issues and connecting the dots. I think it's very important as voters for us to be able to elect candidates that can speak on issues and nuances. And I think that's what we need to look for. We don't need sound bites. We need people who understand the depth, that can connect the dots. You know, if you're going to talk about ICE, talk about private detention centers, talk about who's making the money, talk about habeas corpus, right? Talk about those things. We need to empower our candidates to become smarter on the policies. So when they respond to our questions, they have earned our votes. And I think there is a group of candidates that understand that. So we need to say goodbye to any candidates that make great, remarkable, charming speeches without nuances and diving deep, because we need that for them. Because when they go into Congress, that is what's going to distinguish them, because they're going to have to know the fine details, and the devil is in the fine details. So I just think this is a very helpful exercise as we've been bringing candidates, and then we've been diving into nuances and policies, because we're setting the tone of what we expect from our candidates.
You know, Maria, you are so right. What I'm finding, and you know, I'm coaching 7 candidates right now to help them be better candidates and support American values, right? And the one thing that I always find, it's fine to, you know, occasionally throw out a platitude like, healthcare is a human right, but what does that mean, right? So don't tell me it's a human right if you can't explain in depth to me, and I'm particularly painful about this because I have spent my whole career in healthcare analysis. is like, if you can't explain to me how healthcare or how Medicare works right now, how Medicaid works right now, and how we move forward with a model that expands on that and is fair to everybody and includes everybody, meaning everybody that is currently present in this
Yeah,
nation,
yeah.
because they're all humans and it is a human right.
The
But
55 million people left, Marie. Because
Yeah, right.
remember,
I mean,
300 people are dead because of drugs because Trump said that.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing is that regardless, and we all know the statistics, right? Is that Maria raises a really good point, is that and you don't want me in your forum because like I will drill down on both, particularly the economy and the healthcare model that you're choosing. And I wish more people would drill down on these candidates because they do have to know this. They can't just throw out because we have members of Congress right here in Illinois that talk about in platitudes all the time and don't know a darn thing about our healthcare, don't know a darn thing about the real economy. They know about the stock market,
Yep,
but they don't know about the real economy. So
yeah, and I
they're two
think
different
also,
things.
yeah, and Marina, I also think we have seen elections won by deliberately avoiding nuances.
Yes.
And simplifying issues.
Yes.
We have seen people win like that.
Yeah.
So it robs a constituency from knowing the real facts before, and then it's too late. And then you get bills or you get, and you're like, what's happening to my life? What's happening to the fact that I can afford things? What's happening to my healthcare bills? Because you didn't know that you were supposed to deep and dive because no one led you down that way. So it's a partnership. It's a partnership.
It is for sure. And
right? We have
and
to ask for that, and they have to rise to the challenge.
It is our job to do the things we're doing. Right. It is our job too.
Marie, that I have been thinking about is we have a lot of young people wanting to run for Congress. Great. But don't go on talking points that some consultant told you are good for you. When you go to Congress for the first term, you'll be lucky to know where the freaking bathroom is.
Amen.
Okay. Leave alone all these big things that you're saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And when you haven't a slightest clue as to what you are saying, Marie, you don't know what you're talking about, so shut up. But by the same token, we need to bring our existing people, our existing Congress people who are in power and grill them on this platform or any other platform as to who are you voting for? Are you voting for the people that are supporting you, that elected you? Are you voting for the special interests that are paying you to stay in Congress, stay in power?
That is it. And I know I harp on this so very much and it gets painful, but I'll just say it one more time.
And we can continue the conversation today, by the way, because
Adriana has her, by the way,
yeah,
Adriana has her hand raised for a good 3 minutes.
Yeah, Adriana.
Okay.
No, I just wanted to say how I do agree with you how you were saying that it feels like people just kind of blinked and now our entire lives are changed. We can't afford a lot of certain things, especially with healthcare. And one of my friends brought up a really good point when we're talking about equality versus equity and this whole talk about DEI. And they put it in like a very good layman's terms because people are going to hear these two things and think they're the exact same thing when they're not. And they put it in a phrase where it's like, think that if you gave equality is like saying, okay, everybody here has a pair of shoes and everybody gets the same exact pair of shoes. But equity is where everybody gets a pair of shoes that fits to them, caters to them. And I thought about it, I was like, okay, that makes a lot more sense. So then now as I'm looking at just kind of stuff that's happening here, that simple, very simple term, you put it into what's happening in the world and you realize they don't really care about just like the people that they are working for. They care about the big corporations, the big businesses, and they are getting upset when people are wondering why they're doing these things for the tax breaks and all that, especially when tax season is coming up. People are looking at their health care. I looked at health care just for myself, and it's around $500 a month. And I look at that, I'm like, okay, so healthcare is $500 a month. If you are to rent an apartment, it's over $1,000 a month, not including anything else of like basic necessities for people to live off of. And then here in Indiana, minimum wage is still $7.50. And it
But
makes
you're lucky
people,
that you are in Indiana, Adriana. You can get an apartment for $1,000. In Chicago,
Yeah.
yeah.
the rents are like
Crazy.
They're around
unbelievable.
2050, like around that area. So because I remember like when we would do research on all of these things and kind of look at how much affordability has changed, to see how prices have doubled, even tripled, and especially
Yeah.
with the healthcare, and when they tried to make a decision for the millionth time on healthcare, when it came to the Democrats versus Republicans, Democrats putting up the same exact healthcare plan and Republicans saying we'll give the money to the people even though it wouldn't be enough.
Well,
Even
our
if they did
president
that.
has a concept of a plan even now. Let's not forget it. Okay, so the guy is always having concepts of things, and he also claims that everything is coming down. I think he is
Mm.
probably looking at his poll numbers, Maria, when he says things are coming down. They're probably showing him those numbers that people don't really believe what you're saying. But you're right. It is, and one thing which I have noticed also, especially I'm on the planning commission and the zoning board of appeals in the village that I'm in, and we have a lot of developers coming in wanting to put up subdivisions now. You know what's the new trend now, Marie? The trend is rental homes because people can't really afford to buy a home anymore. And now these big corporations are coming in. They want to put up these cookie cutter homes in our neighborhoods and then rent them out so that there's no home ownership being left
Mm.
in this country.
It's just to frame that for everybody is that up until 10 years ago, and remember who was in office 10 years ago. Up
Yep.
until 10 years ago, it was the fastest way for a young person to gain both equity and wealth in their life. It was the fastest ways to own a home. So now we've taken that away from young people and everybody, right? So this is why we have inequity and we have the haves and the have-nots. And all of the things that are really troubling us right now. So I did a piece earlier this week. 50% of the nation right now is reporting that they are struggling each week to pay their bills. 60% of the nation lives paycheck to paycheck. That is the highest ever. So when we talk about housing, we have to couple that with we've taken our young people's ability to create their own wealth to be safe and secure, and we've taken away their sense of equity.
Go ahead, Reed. Just want to say something.
I just want to piggyback on what Marie was saying, is that in the minority communities of America, this has historically been the case, that minorities have been getting cut off from being able to transfer intergenerational wealth. Now it's trying to impact even the children of white people in this country. So you know that this is a class warfare thing. This isn't just about race anymore. This is class warfare. We didn't start it, the wealthy did.
That's right.
Well, we got about 4 minutes to finish out the show today. I just wanted to give a preview on my monologue for next week. I was looking at the healthcare crisis that we have and what has created the healthcare crisis. It's not about healthcare anymore, it's about sick care. And a lot of it can be traced back to our food and the kind of food that is available that we are eating now. So we had the giveaway yesterday of food and essential items. So we had a lot of people come and pick up those things, right? And I was in Costco. I looked at this beautiful little thing. I'm going to put up a picture of that when I do the rant next week of some kind of a party check mixed thing. And the ingredients on that, if you read the label, there is 4 different kinds of sugars, 5 different kinds of oil, including hydrogenated oil. And I was showing it to one of the volunteers yesterday. By the way, the guy is senior vice president for Midwest for Nissan Automotive. He just moved here from Tennessee. Okay. Bob has become a good friend, and we were discussing this. And we also gave away pet food yesterday. So I picked up a bag of dog food and we looked at the ingredients in that bag of dog food, chicken this and chicken that and this, and no additives that you can think of, no sugars, no oils. And Bob looked at his wife, Jennifer, and said, Jennifer, that's going to be my dinner from now on. So we are really,
Yeah.
food industry is really messing it up. And the San Francisco Attorney General filed a lawsuit against some of the biggest food manufacturers, Procter and Gamble, and all of those people, as to how the food that they are selling for us, they are marketing to us, is leading to the health crisis.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that is something that I'm going to do my Substack on also, Marie, and I'm going to talk about it. So just a heads up, folks, we need to watch out. We need to read those labels before we buy anything. We got 1 minute to wind up the show. Traci, again, thank you so much for joining us. Marie, as usual, Maria, thank you so much. Reed, thank you for joining. Dr. Sheila White, Adriana, I know that you are driving back from school, and also Carl Moose could not join us today. A quick heads up on our former co-host, Ken DeLuke. Ken is still in the hospital, and they are, it's like a day-to-day thing. They are not allowing visitors in there to see him. There's only 4 people allowed to visit, and there's a code for that. I'm one of them, and then his immediate family and Pastor Blackfull. And I'll keep you guys updated as to what's happening with him. Please keep him in your prayers. And if we don't see each other before Christmas, Merry Christmas to everybody. Okay. Let's not say happy holidays. It doesn't make sense. Christmas is Christmas, folks. And let's not kid ourselves by saying happy holidays. Yeah, happy holidays to people who don't want to celebrate Christmas.
Well, you can say both. You
We
can say both.
Yeah, we can say both. Okay. So on that note, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be
Thank
back next week with some more interesting programs and interesting guests. Starting first week of January, we have got our forums coming up for candidates,
Yeah.
and Mike Patino with Aslan Consulting is helping to get the word out to our candidates to join the forums. And Marie, I also ran into a Senate candidate yesterday. There was a party, there's an independent candidate running for Senate,
Yeah.
Tyrone Mohammed.
Yeah, there are, there's a lot of them. People are forgetting that because there's kind of the top 3, and then there's another, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 that are running. And they're important to be heard. And by the way, those are our future candidates in other roles. So while they may not make it this time, they should go on and do great things in other races. So let's applaud all of them stepping. It's not easy to run. So let's give them all a hug.
Yeah, and Tyrone is actually running as an independent.
Love it. Love it.
So
I
was
think
like,
more of us should. I've made it clear, like, I wish we had 5 parties to choose from, not 2.
Yeah.
well, eventually it will happen. Reed, final word from you, sir, and we'll
My
finish
final
off the
word
show
is
today.
that my final word is that Adriana has inspired me to put in my application to the Wharton School of Economics, because when you can reduce inflation by 600%, that's a school I want to go to.
Yeah.
Okay. Traci, final word from you today before we let you go.
Well, thank you first and foremost for having me. It's been an enlightening conversation, and this really motivates me to continue the work that we've started. I can't believe I'm about to say this, over 13 years ago. And we will continue doing more in 2026 and beyond. There's a great need, and we all have to roll up our sleeves and get it done.
Absolutely. Please do keep in touch. Marie, again, thank you so much. Folks, over and out. We'll see you next week. Sunday, same thing, same place, 8 to 10.